it's Sessy Reads. I thought I would do a wrap-up video today from what I read in February. And I was thinking about doing a wrap-up video for January. I know I wasn't like on YouTube then, but I kind of want to do it just so that I have my full year like documented, and just videos for you guys to enjoy and just listen to my opinions on certain things and to hear your guys' feedback too. And honestly, like more practice videos too, so I can get more comfortable being like behind the camera. But yeah, so today I thought I have like a list of all the books that I read here and what I rated them. I do not have any of them actually with me, so I do borrow from the library quite frequently, and that's honestly how I get most of my books. And I do borrow from my family too. My books are back to the library currently. I believe I read 10 books this month, and then I thought I would just kind of just read off my thoughts and kind of just explain my feelings for each book. So February, the first day of February actually, I read Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. So I gave this book 1 star. Oh my god, I hated this book so much, and it is hard for me to explain like why I hate a book more than I love it, but or more than why I love it. And so this book is like very boring. But okay, so for people who don't know what the book is about, so it's about this woman who ends up in a coma, and so she can only hear around her. She can't open her eyes, she can't move, nothing, but she can hear who's in the room. And the 2 people who are in her room with her is her sister and her husband, and those are the 2 that are connected to the reason why she is in a coma. And the synopsis sounds amazing. I was like, I am hooked, I am reading this book, like I want this book. It's so interesting in the beginning, and kind of like just got halfway in, I realized I'm really not into this book. Honestly, I was just skimming the pages. I really could not. It was so boring. It's very slow, and it's also not what I wanted, like at the twist at the end, I guess. And it was not a satisfying ending for me, and none of it was just satisfying for me. I really hated the book. Yeah, so if you are interested in the book, I definitely say go for it. We'll never like, you know, stop somebody from actually reading a book that sounds good. It did sound good. But yeah, so I don't want my opinion to go ahead and derail somebody from reading a book that they possibly could really love. The second book I read in February is Scythe by Neal Shusterman, and I gave that book 5 stars. Where to begin with this beautiful book? This book, oh my gosh, I love it so much. So the book is about, if you're not sure, I mean pretty much, I feel like everybody knows what this book is about now because it's really, really hyped. And for good reason. It does deserve its hype. Scythe is about a utopian world where society gets to a point where nobody dies from diseases, nobody gets into car accidents, nobody just falls off a mountain and dies, like nobody dies. So they have set people who do go ahead and kill people, but they call it gleaning because the world is so overpopulated. Now there's a lot more obviously involved in it, and it's amazing. It's really 100% worth the hype. It's 100% worth reading. I finished that book, I think it was in like a day or 2. I was so addicted, I couldn't even put it down. I didn't sleep, nothing. I love it. And so I do have the second book on my TBR for next month, which I am going to come out with a TBR video. Sorry if you can see my cat, she's trying to be near me right now. But yeah, so the third book I read in February was Stillhouse Lake by Rachel Kane. This book, his next one, is amazing too. I gave this one 5 stars. It is a series, and it's about a woman and her 2 children, and they're driving home one day when they turn onto their street and they see ambulances, they see police cars, they see all their neighbors standing outside, and she sees her house and there's a car sitting in her house in her garage. And so a cop comes up to her like, "You need to keep moving, ma'am," and she's like, "My name is Gina Royal, and that is my house. There's a car sitting in my house." And the cop is like, "You're Gina Royal?" And she says, "Yes." And he's like, "You need to step out of the car, ma'am." And he arrests her. And she's sitting there like, what's going on? Why are you arresting me? And he ends up like bringing her to the garage, and he's all like, "Oh, you really don't know why?" And in the garage, there's a body hanging there. And so it is revealed that her husband is a serial killer, and she had no idea the whole time. Also, like after that first event, it does go on to, I think, a couple years later, I'm not exactly sure how long, I think it's like 3 years, And so it starts off from there, and it's about like how she stays on the run from her husband, who is in jail, but he and his followers and people who think that she did have something to do with it are terrorizing her and her family, including her mom. And so her mom even had to move a couple times. But it is very, very, very good. I feel like I'm not explaining it like in a good enough way, but it's very, very good. I'm hoping I can get the second book next month again for Merch's TBR. So the fourth book I read for February, which now this is going to be like kind of like what I read also when I was reading Thriller-a-thon. So the first one was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I think I looked up to say his name, and I hope I'm saying it right. But I gave this book 4 stars. The Silent Patient follows a woman who one day, just out of the blue, shoots her husband 5 times in the head and then never speaks again. And then it follows a psychologist who is very interested in getting to know why she did this. So now I think this is like 9 years later, I believe, in the book. And he actually moves like his entire life over to where she is at so that he can be her therapist and to find out what happened and why she does not speak. And it was very interesting, and I really did enjoy the plot twist. The first half of the book I did find very boring, but the second half of the book, it really does pick up your interest, and the plot twist is very simple, and it is really, really easy to find out. But I do read a lot of thrillers. That could be another reason why it is. I didn't mind figuring it out, I guess. I really kind of just enjoyed the fact that what the twist was, I guess, just as a whole. And the book itself was very, very well written, and I thought that it all just went and flowed very nicely together. I really did enjoy it, and I did like the multiple characters. I did finish this book in 5 hours. I really liked it. I listened to it on audio, so I highly, highly recommend this book if you're looking for a thriller. So the next book I read for February was Blindsided by Karen Slaughter. This book was so good. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Before I tell you what it's about, I'm just going to preface and say Karen Slaughter may not be for everyone. There is a lot of trigger warnings that I would highly, highly recommend just looking up to make sure that you're able to feel comfortable enough to read her books. Just definitely look up the trigger warnings for yourself. But yeah, so Blindsided, it follows a woman named Sarah Linton and the police chief Jeffrey Tolliver, and it's all surrounded by a small town in Georgia named Grant County, where in this first book a woman is found murdered inside of one of the diners. It also follows another main character named Lita Adams, who was a twin sister of the woman who was found in the diner that was killed, and she is the sole female detective, I believe, on Jeffrey's team. This book was really, really good. It's really well written. This book was 5 stars. Highly recommend. Very much so. So the next book I read for February was Disclaimer by Renee Knight. I gave this book 5 stars. Disclaimer is about a woman who is getting ready for bed, and she's laying down next to her husband, and she sees a book named The Perfect Stranger on her nightstand. So she does pick it up, and she doesn't know how the book got there, but she's reading, and she ends up realizing that very dark secret that she does have from her past, and somehow it's in this book. And the summary of this book sounds so good, and that's everything you could ever want, basically. Like, it just sounds so good. I love psychological thrillers. So I read this book, and I listened to it on audio. It was very hard for me to understand what was happening when I was reading it on audio, because there's a lot of time jumps, and I didn't know what we were following. I couldn't even remember their names for some reason. It could just be a me thing. But yeah, this book is good. I almost want to like knock it down to 4 stars though, because I really, really, really wasn't into it when I first started reading it. But as it did go on, it did get better, and it got a lot more interesting, and the ending is exactly like kind of what I wanted, but I didn't know I wanted at the end. It is it is a really good book. So the next book I read for February is The Other People by C.J. Tudor. This book, it needs all its recognition, it needs everything. This book is amazing. This book follows a man who's driving down the highway at night. It's very busy out, and he sees a little girl in the back of one of the cars in front of him, and he's like, why isn't she wearing a seatbelt? And then he realizes that's his kid. And so at this point, he's trying to go ahead and get after this car. Somebody pulls the little girl down in the back seat, and so he's gunning it. He ends up losing them, of course, in the traffic, and he pulls off into a gas station to call his wife because his phone died. And so who picks up instead is a police detective, and she says, you need to come home right away. And she says it's about your wife and your daughter. And so the book takes off from 3 years later. And so it's basically about him trying to figure out and find out where his daughter is, even though the police think that she's dead. Also, I should say that the other people I also did read for a Thrillathon and Books in Lala's book club called the Literally Dead Book Club. Read it for that too. Anyway, so the next book that I have is Moon of the Crusted Snow by Wabgeshing Rice. Now, I don't want to mess up his first name. I hope I'm saying that. I'm probably not saying that correctly. I am so sorry. I am sorry, but this book was amazing. That's all I gotta say. I feel like I read so many good 5 stars this month. But this book is an apocalyptic book. It follows a family who lives in this smaller community, and they have to survive when all of the power goes out and it's winter. So this community is very much so like a survivalist kind of community. I don't know how best to explain it, but they do chop down their own wood. They grow and get their own and catch their own food. They hunt. They do all of the survivalist type of things. It was very, very interesting. It was really, really, it kept me going. It was slow. It was really thought out. The characters were so beautiful, and it is very short. It's 213 pages. It really does pack a punch. It still stays with me. I did rate this 4 stars when I first read it, and now that I'm re-looking over it, I'm giving it 5 stars. I love this book. It's so good. I actually do want to own this one myself. It was really, really powerful, and it was really moving. I was very emotional at the end. 100% like worth this book. So the next book I did read for February is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. Now, this book, I had so much hope for this book because it was so hyped. And the cover is amazing. I love the cover. I'm going to try to put all the pictures of the books like right here since I don't have them with me. This book looked so good, and it sounded so good. The book follows a man who gets knocked out after somebody asks him if he's happy. And so the next moment he wakes up and there's a bunch of people with hazmat suits on and asking him, how was it? Pretty much. And I can't say any more than that because it's extremely, extremely involved. This has a lot of layers. There's a lot of different things happening in the book. I want to get into spoilers a little bit. So I'm going to say a little bit of the spoilers, and you can skip to, I will put the time right here when I'm done talking about it. But so the time travel aspect of this book was so interesting to me, and I was really looking forward to it. But the science parts are the parts that I really had an issue with, because I feel like when it has to be so overly talked about and they have to go so deep into it, I mean, it's a thriller, like, I don't know, I feel like it was too much, and it was overdone, way too much, and I didn't enjoy the ending at all. Like, I hated the ending when he got his whole family, and there's all of the other Jasons are sitting outside of the cube, and he's all like, then the wife has to go, oh, you know, like, I want to be with him, and like all of a sudden all these Jasons are gonna stop and like just let them into the cube. To me, it was just, it was so bad. I really hated it. I also really just, when I got to the part when they were in that other world where there was a disease happening, like, I love diseases inside of books and things like that. I hated like that part. I also hated how, I mean, I can understand how traumatic it would be if I saw, like, if he saw his wife and his kid and they're both dead in these multiple worlds, and it's almost impossible to get back to your own. It's also very, like, convoluted, like, with how he gets back to his world, and that's fine. I just kind of didn't care for the wife, like, I guess, and I felt like, I mean, I don't know if you're supposed to be getting to know the wife. I don't know if you're supposed to be getting to know his child. It was just not for me, I guess. And I just did not care, I guess. I really didn't care about anybody that was happening except for the woman that went with him into the cube the first time. I forget her name. I think it's Amanda. I'm not sure. But I actually did care about her more than I cared about the wife. But this book, I guess, just was not for me. I really, really, really didn't like it. And at the point at the end, I was just like, I don't even care if he got killed. And the whole group chat idea with all the Jasons in it, please, God, it was so bad. I really didn't like that at all. But yeah, I hope I'm explaining why I didn't like it correctly. I feel bad talking bad about a book, especially since I really, really wanted to enjoy it. I don't know. I am definitely going to be picking up another book by this author because I like the writing style and I feel like it had such potential. I really do want to read something else by, I believe it's a guy. I do want to read something else by him. So, but yeah, so spoilers done now. No more spoilers. But yeah, so I gave this book 3 stars. I just didn't care for like the characters pretty much, and so yeah, so enough of that. I feel bad talking bad about a book. I'm sorry. I don't mean like if you guys liked this book, if somebody enjoyed this book, I'm sorry that I'm like just like downing it and just completely talking bad about it. I am sorry. So the next book I read was, thank you God, a 5-star book. It was Kiss Cut by Karen Slaughter. So the Grant Count series, it's the 2nd book in it. And this one follows Sarah Linton and Jeffrey Tolliver. Now each book, it kind of does go together because like the relationships between the characters are going to always be there, but each book does have a different like case and what's happening. So I mean, I guess you could read the book by itself if you wanted to, but you won't understand anything about the characters or the relationships between them. But it's very, 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 very good. Like, I don't even want to use the word good. It's phenomenal. I love this book. It's perfect. All the books by Karen Slaughter, apparently, I love. Like, her series are so good. Which I never thought I would like these kind of series, but it's so good. So yeah, this book is basically about Sarah and Jeffrey are at a roller skating rink, I believe, and Sarah ends up going to the bathroom, and Jeffrey ends up going outside to go ahead and make a quick call, and he hears shouting, and he goes over there and he sees a 13-year-old who's holding a gun up to a guy. And so it starts off from there, and then Sarah ends up going into the bathroom, and there was a ton of blood on somebody's backpack which swiped against her, and so when she looked down, her shirt had blood on it. And so it starts from there. Now, I don't want to say anything more, but this book has a lot of trigger warnings. This book was very hard for me to read, honestly. There was a point where I almost wanted to put it down, but I love her characters and I just love the way she writes, so I have to keep reading it. But yeah, this one was a little bit harder to read. This book does have a lot of triggers. There is rape, there's suicidal tendencies and suicidal like thoughts. There's child pornography, there's pedophilia, there's incest, like body horror. I think that's it. But I definitely would look up more trigger warnings just to be safe. But yeah, there's a lot involved in this book. It is a good book. It's just some of it was very hard to read, especially the child pedophilia and the incest was particularly hard for me to read. Definitely go into this book knowing that, and I would look it up myself, like if you wanted to read this book and you were wary about the triggers. But yeah, so that's all I read in February. I do want to make a TBR video tomorrow for March. I already am reading a book right now, and I am excited to get further into it. It's an extremely long book. Hopefully I can finish it next month. I do have a lengthy TBR the next month. I am looking forward to all the books I have chosen, and I hope you guys are too, about hearing my thoughts on it. I hope that I spoke clearly enough for everyone and that I didn't speak too fast. I'm trying to practice and go ahead and just speak like I normally would, just to somebody, just if somebody was just standing there, and trying to become more comfortable with it. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. But I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully, if not the next day for sure. But bye.